Regularly scheduled programs will not be seen tonight so that we may bring you the NFL football game live and in color.
Short drop, quick throw, left side, intercepted! Down the right sideline! Touchdown! Al Harris, game-winning touchdown! Green Bay Packers!
Already 2 touchdowns for Brown, and they give it to him again. He fumbles the ball, and Luck is there to pick it up and go over the goal line!
Ford bumps again to the sideline. Batted up.
Oh, God! Stokely down the sideline! Can they catch him? Stokely! Wow! Touchdown!
Play clock at 5. Pass is intercepted at the goal line by Malcolm Butler. Unreal.
Welcome to Basically a Football Show.
It's Basically a Football Show. I'm Zach, along with me is Greg. And Greg, our NFL season preview, much anticipated, of course. Interesting storylines. There's been a lot of garbage that we've had to wade through this offseason in the NFL, but thankfully for you guys and for us, we will stray away from that today. We will focus on the field. We'll get to breaking down some of these football teams. Let's get to the game itself, and normally we start with the division that has the current world champion in it, and that's the AFC East, home of the reigning world champion, New England Patriots. I don't know how much we can really say about the Patriots because they're good. They have Tom Brady. The defense is going to be solid. They still have offensive weapons. Even the guys they've lost, they're going to replace with somebody you've never heard of. They get the most out of what they have. You know exactly what the New England Patriots are, and they're going to win 12 games again, right? I mean, that's kind of what the Patriots do. Win the division, win 12 games, get a bye, and see you in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, we talked about it last year where we thought maybe that would be the year that they would slow down a little bit and maybe a team like Miami would rise up and take the division. And what did the Patriots do? They went on to win the Super Bowl. So I'm very reluctant this year to say that they might fall off a little bit, but I will say that, if anything, Tom Brady's a year older. Now, that doesn't mean a whole lot with the way he plays the game. His arm strength might start showing a little bit of wear and tear, but overall, I am with you. They're the Patriots. They do what they do, and you say what you want about them, but they're successful, and you're right. They're going to do it with guys we've never heard of. They're going to do things that they do every year, and they're going to be right in the thick of it again.
And, I mean, as we saw last year, if there's a team that knows how to give a good FU to the rest of the league, it's the New England Patriots. Remember when they went into Monday night, Kansas City got demolished by the Chiefs, and we were all ready to – this was like week 4. And we're like, okay, that's it. This is the end of the New England Patriots dynasty. Not so fast. I think they had a bye, and then they went on to win like 11 of the next. I think, did they start out 1-3 or something like that?
I want to say the only game they lost the rest of the way was when they played the Packers at Lambeau.
Yeah, so then they were 1-3 at that point and went 11-1 the rest of the season. The Patriots are just the most complete team in the division, and even if they don't win 12, if they only win 10 or 11, they're still going to be the best team in this division by a long shot, I think.
Of the other teams, if I had to pick one that I think had a shot at knocking them off, I'd probably go with the Dolphins, although I'm really curious to see a Rex Ryan coached Buffalo Bills team.
Let's move on to the Bills. You have Rex Ryan coming in at D. You have a ton of talent on that defense. They have a running back in LaShawn McCoy. They have a couple really good receivers in Sammy Watkins and Robert Woods. But the thing this team lacks, and unfortunately the thing that Rex Ryan has always lacked, is a quarterback. Tyrod Taylor is going to be the starter. E.J. Manuel is the second stringer. And initially they had cut Matt Castle, only to re-sign him 2 days later. If the Buffalo Bills can get anything close to competent quarterback play, somebody that in LaShawn McCoy can be who we know he is, and the quarterback can get it out to guys like Sammy Watkins and Robert Woods, and the defense can be as much of an impact as everybody in the football world feels that Rex Ryan can do with what the Bills have, they can make some noise. They were 9-7 last year. They were kind of hanging around. If the defense can win them maybe a couple more games and maybe get them to 2-10 wins, they're going to be right there in the conversation as a potential wild card team.
But aren't you a little bit concerned that the starting quarterback is Tyrod Taylor?
Well, extremely.
It's one of those things where, yeah, if they get a couple of breaks, I mean, they played good football towards the end last year. I mean, they were right in the thick of the hunt for a playoff spot, fell a little bit short, and then they fire the coach and they change everything. So I don't know how much of a difference that's going to make. Sometimes it elevates you to the next step. Sometimes you take a huge step backwards. But unless one of these guys emerges as a quarterback that we just aren't expecting right now, I would be more inclined to say that they're probably going to finish behind Miami. I mean, you're right. They could get to 10 wins, but I'm looking at maybe a slight regression with the Bills this year.
Yeah.
Maybe a 7, 9, 8, and 8 type season. You never know.
I think the thing for Buffalo is I don't see a game on the schedule except maybe the one in New England that they can't possibly win, right?
They're tantalizingly close is what I would say about them.
If they had a quarterback,
I'd be a lot higher on them than I am right now.
Oh, yeah. The Bills are a giant question mark, but they're a very interesting entry in this division for sure. The Miami Dolphins, I think their offense is going to be phenomenal, assuming that the offensive line stays together. But Tannehill got all that money. Everyone keeps waiting for him to take that next step. They have great receivers, Jarvis Landry, Kenny Stills. They got Jordan Cameron in from Cleveland to be their tight end. Lamar Miller is a pretty decent running back. And on defense, they bring in Ndamukong Suh to kind of solidify that front line. So the Dolphins, again, they're an interesting team on paper going into the season. But we've expected Tannehill to make those jumps. Can he take that step? And can Ndamukong Suh make as big of an impact on defense as he had in Detroit?
The answer to the first part of your question is no. I think Ryan Tannehill is as good as he's going to get, which isn't bad. I just don't know that it's enough, especially in this division when you're fighting it out with Tom Brady. Second question, can Suh make the defense better? I absolutely believe he can, yeah. I know that he's got a lot of issues, but there's no denying the talent the guy has. And Miami's defense was pretty solid last year. And adding this guy to it just makes them even better. But again, I look at them a lot like last year. I mean, when they came out of the gate strong last year, if you remember, and we really liked the way they were looking, but then they just kind of fell apart. It's just a lack of consistency, and I think that comes back to your quarterback. Tannehill is a good, solid quarterback, but he's not enough, especially in that division, to raise it to a level where you can be consistently good enough every week to be in every single game. They're going to have some games where they're going to fall off the cliff against teams they shouldn't fall off a cliff against, and that's going to be their downfall, I think.
Yeah. If you put Tannehill on the Bills, right, would that improve them to the point of being competitive?
Honestly, I think these two teams are very similar in that respect. I think that Tannehill obviously is a better option than what the Bills have right now. But other than that, I mean, weapon for weapon, I think they're pretty similar. Both of them could use who couldn't at this point, use a top-level quarterback, but that's an issue that both of these teams have.
Both those teams are just on the cusp. They need a little extra push, and maybe it's they get some good luck in some games, and they win the tight ones that they might have lost. Both those teams are right there in terms of breaking into the AFC playoff field. Rounding out the division, though, the New York Football Jets. And I think really the only way to describe the offseason for the New York Jets is...
Typical?
The Jets gonna jet.
Exactly.
New head coach in Todd Bowles comes over from Arizona where he was the defensive coordinator, hopefully to improve a defense that gave up 401 points last season, most in the division. Fourth most in the conference. The quarterback position for the New York Jets, of course, always an interesting plot point. Geno Smith, your supposed starter, gets sucker punched, and in to save the New York Jets franchise, Ryan Fitzmagic.
You know, though, honestly, if Fitzmagic, if he can play somewhere between what he did when he got all that money in Buffalo, it makes them more competitive. Do I think they're going to be a threat for anything in that division? No. I like Fitzpatrick better as their starter than I do Geno Smith at this point. But that's not saying much.
Geno Smith, he has some talent, but he's just a giant wild card. He can be radically ineffective and turn the ball over, or he could put on his Michael Vick shoes and play like Michael Vick used to do. But I think it'll serve the Jets well to not have that distraction there, at least for a little bit, and have a quarterback that he's your prototypical middle of the road NFL quarterback.
Right.
They were 2-14 last year, or 4-12, excuse me. I could see them being that or worse. I don't think they're going to be much better. Again, the big thing is the defense. Can Todd Bowles come in and make something of that defense? Is Darrelle Revis going to have a decent impact on at least the pass defense, obviously not on the run game?
A lot of people like this Jets defense going into the season, that it's going to be much improved and all that, but it's not an 85 Bears, 2000 Ravens type defense, which is enough to carry you to a playoff spot. No way.
And again, even if the defense is better, is the offense going to be able to score points?
No.
No.
I mean, let's just say it. You can try to sugarcoat it, but no, they're not going to be able to score.
No. Fourth worst in terms of points allowed, fourth worst in points for in the conference last year were the New York Jets. So I don't see too much improvement there. So, of course, to recap the division, I think it's pretty easy. We both have the Patriots winning the division, right?
Yep.
Bills, Dolphins, whoever gets the breaks, really, in terms of second place and contending for a wild card spot. Whether it's the Bills defense or the Dolphins offense, one of them will put them over the top, I think, and get them going forward.
I think it's going to be the Dolphins. I'd like the Dolphins to come in second, and then followed by the Bills, and then way down 5 or 6 games below that, your New York Football Jets.
I'm going to go Bills over Dolphins just like last year, but you know what? I think I might let the Bills slip into the playoffs. I might just do it.
All right. The one thing you want to look forward to with the Dolphins this season, Week 14, they were those beautiful throwbacks against the Giants.
Moving on to the AFC North. Last season, you had the Pittsburgh Steelers win the division 11-5, a half game better than the Cincinnati Bengals, who graced us with that tie against the Panthers. The Ravens somehow snuck in on the back end at 10-6, and your Cleveland Browns rounded it out at 7-9. The Steelers found an offense again last year.
Oh boy, did they!
Ben Roethlisberger was fantastic. He hooked up with Antonio Brown many a time. And Le'Veon Bell was a revelation for them in the backfield. The defense, they gave up a little bit more points than usual, not as stout. Troy Polamalu retires off that unit. What do you see from the Steel City this year, Greg? More of the same? Or
More of the same, I think so. You forgot about the other kid they had at receiver that had a couple good games too, Matavis Bryant. Real good player. But yeah, more of the same for the Steelers. The defense isn't what it's known for in Pittsburgh anymore. You know, the hard hitting and the tough, rough and tumble Pittsburgh defense is not quite like that anymore, but they're going to be fun to watch, I think. And it's just going to be a matter of, like last year, if the defense can keep up with the offense, they're going to be tough to beat. And I'd like them to win the division, I think, at this point.
I think so too. I don't know. I don't think it's just not something that we've seen out of Ben Roethlisberger in his game before. He's always been that kind of hard-nosed quarterback that kind of rolls out and hits the tight end and that sort of thing. And then last year he transformed into a spread offense pocket quarterback and was putting up big numbers.
We had a few weeks there where it was incredible, remember?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He was putting up like 400, 500 yards a game for like 3 weeks.
Right.
So I just by simple looking back at the rest of his career, I almost have to think that they come down a little bit in terms of the offense. But when you look at the rest of the division, I still think they have probably the best offense in it.
I do like their offensive weapons. I mean, Roethlisberger, he's shown he can throw when he has to, but they also have a pretty solid running game with Bell. The Steelers are going to be tough, but again, defense, they've got to be able to. They don't have to be the 75 or the 79 Steelers or whatever, but they do need to tighten it up a little bit, I think.
I think I like the Steelers to win the division, too. Running up to them last year was the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that hasn't changed much of anything.
No.
They haven't changed a whole lot in the last 4 years or so. In the Andy Dalton era, I guess we could call it at this point.
Right.
The Bengals have kind of been what they are. I just don't think that they can go along that way with keeping it as same as it is.
They're just a weird team. I mean, they're not bad, but I don't recall them doing anything in this offseason that made them significantly better than they were last year.
No, I mean the offensive weapons are generally the same. You have Andy Dalton, he's going to throw to AJ Green. You got Tyler Eifert at tight end. Giovanni Bernard's the running back. He'll be productive, I think. On defense,
they can play tough defense. The Bengals. That's one thing about them that it's just that. But I think it's the same situation like it is with the Dolphins. I think Andy Dalton is as good as he's going to get. So you've got to decide, is that good enough? And I suppose if you want to just keep making a run at a playoff spot every year and getting eliminated in the first round, then yeah, he's your guy. But at some point you got to look at it and go, if we want to make the next level, we've got to take a serious look at getting a better quarterback. Dalton's a lot like Tannehill, a serviceable NFL quarterback, but not a guy that's going to get you to a Super Bowl.
It is what it is with the Bengals. But the team that I think is going to step up and make the playoffs again and be second place in this division, I think, is the Ravens. Now, they lose a little bit with Haloti Ngata. They trade him to Detroit. Torrey Smith, Joe Flacco's favorite throw-the-ball deep and catch-it guy, is gone. But I still think the Ravens are very, very solid. surprisingly, Steve Smith still has some years left in him, and he played well for them last year, and we'll do the same for him again this year.
He's going to be a top target again this year in that offense at, age 39, I think he is at this point?
The Ravens defense, despite losing Haloti Ngata, you still got guys like Terrell Suggs, who, when you think of linebackers in the league, the Ravens linebacker core is really kind of the gold standard right now when you look across the rest of the league in terms of longevity and production. They're solid. They're staying the course, much like the Steelers. They'll be the same. I don't think they're going to be an elite team. I don't think that Joe Flacco has gotten any immensely better than he has been.
The debate's been raging since the day it came out of his mouth. Flacco is not an elite quarterback, but he has moments where he can be, which is, I think, what sets him apart from guys like Tannehill and Dalton. Is he better than those two? Yes, but he's not elite at the Aaron Rodgers, Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady level of elite, but he can be at times. That's the difference.
When it comes to the NFL has seen a lot of worst to first or a lot of changeover, and there's always surprises. But the AFC over the last few years, it's generally the same when we look across the board. The Steelers and the Patriots and the Colts and the Broncos, and then you have the second place teams all kind of find it out. You have the Baltimores, the Miamis, the San Diegos.
Well, you look at the AFC, do you see a team out of the regular cast of characters that's going to jump out and you think they can make the next step? I don't.
I guess the only one that would be in there would be Buffalo.
Maybe.
But Buffalo's a maybe.
Every once in a while, you see a team and you look at it and you go, these guys have made some moves in the offseason, and we're going to see results of that this year. I look at the AFC, and short of the teams that are always there, I don't see anyone that I think has made such significant improvement that they're going to move up to the next level out of that conference.
No.
I mean, there's going to be some teams that are going to be improved, but not to the level they need to be.
Right. I think we all kind of think that Oakland's a little bit better, but they're not going to be playoff better.
Maybe a couple wins better, yeah. Maybe
Tennessee, maybe they're better. Jacksonville, Cleveland is a giant question mark. And,
right.
Well, let's get to those Cleveland Browns.
Exactly.
If we've covered everything else. Cleveland Browns, Brian Hoyer, their starting quarterback. He's now in Houston. Your starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns is Zeppo McCown, aka Josh. The backup will be Johnny, I'm out of rehab, listen to me, I'm not talking to anybody, Manziel. And they have new uniforms.
With the Browns, the defense is going to be solid again. Mm-hmm. The offense is going to be a disaster. Here's the thing, too, and I want to bring this up about the Cleveland Browns. Wouldn't you think that at this point, especially now with the hindsight that we have, I was screaming for this back when they drafted Manziel. Teddy Bridgewater was just sitting there. Now granted, Bridgewater's not the next Andrew Luck or anything, but he's a hell of a lot better than anything they have taking snaps under center right now. And you wasted that first-round pick on Johnny Manziel, and he can't even beat out Zeppo McCown for the starting job. I mean, come on. That's the Cleveland Browns in a nutshell right there. They can never seem to find a way to put everything together at the same time. They've got a good, solid defense, and that's it. What else do they have? You're looking, 7-9 is going to be a gift for them this year. I think they're going to be terrible.
Who's their running back right now?
Isaiah Crowell.
What do they have at wide receiver now that Gordon's not there and Jordan Cameron's not going to be catching balls?
They've got Brian Hartline.
Okay.
From the Dolphins, okay.
Right, of course, because he's an Ohio kid.
Exactly.
With the way the Browns are, Josh McCown's the starter right now, but there's no way they don't play Johnny Manziel by the end of the season again.
Oh, I think that after game 1, when they go out and lose to the Jets, you're going to be hearing everybody call for Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, it's going to be the same as last year when it comes to that front.
Yep. The only thing that keeps this franchise from being the biggest disaster in the NFL is the Washington franchise. It's a horrible team. You talked about the new uniforms. The coaches are complaining now because the brown jerseys with the orange numbers, they can't tell who's who in the coaching films. Swear to God.
Wait, really?
Yes. That's the Cleveland Browns. There you go.
That's such a Cleveland Browns thing, too.
I know. And they come out with these horrible new uniforms.
Goodness.
And now they're talking like they're probably going to have to wear white all the time or the orange. The brown jersey's pretty much out of the mix because the coaches can't read the numbers on the coaching
hilarious.
Film. Yeah.
That's hilarious.
And one of the coaches actually said, after 2 years of research, you think someone would have figured this out. And I said, no, not in Cleveland. Anywhere else probably, but not here.
Oh, Cleveland.
Yeah. They'll be competitive in a lot of games because the defense is pretty good. But you're looking at a 5-11 season. They're not going to be 7-9 again. And if things go really south, they could end up 2-14. don't even kid yourself about trying to put this team in the playoff hunt.
It was a miracle that they were there in the first place last year.
Right.
This team is worse.
Right.
I think it's unequivocally it's worse than the one it was last year. I don't know. Factory of sadness. That's all it is.
The worst thing about it is it's just no hope.
No.
You just look at it and you go, what? I mean, my goodness, it's going to take another complete rebuilding effort to get them. It's just a disaster. But anyway, we could go on and we could do a whole show just about how bad the Browns are. So let's just move along.
I mean, the only good thing is that they managed to keep their coach from one season to the next one. So
the guy that was their 5th choice for head coach, by the way, because the other 4 didn't want the job.
He's getting a second season, and that means something, right?
Well, yeah, these days in Cleveland, yeah. Our coach got a second season. Hey, we're on the right track. All right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyway, so who do we like? We like the Steelers to win the division.
Yeah, I think we're both pretty clear on that. Steelers to win the division. I've got the Ravens in second in a wild card spot.
Same here.
I got the Bengals in third, not making the playoffs.
I'm with you there too. I think the Bengals probably 8-8, 7-9, maybe 9-7. Maybe they do a 10-win season again, but I think they regress a little bit this season. And the Browns bringing up the rear as always.
As always. Move on to the American Football Conference South Division. Last year you had your Indianapolis Colts, the division winners at 11-5. Just outside the playoffs were the Houston Texans, 9-7. And then a very, very long drop to the bottom half of this division as Jacksonville managed to not finish last in the division for the first time in forever. They got to 3-13, and the Tennessee Titans sat in the cellar at 2-14. Obviously, this is the Colts division to lose. A lot of people are saying that this is the Colts conference to lose. As a Colts fan, I am happy with the direction of this team. Andrew Luck continues to be Andrew Luck and even improve in some areas. I think they have some nice offensive weapons, assuming that the running backs can stay healthy.
How do you like to pick up a Frank Gore at running back?
I like him a lot.
I do too. I think it's a smart move by the Colts.
Yeah.
It's certainly an upgrade over what they had.
Ahmad Bradshaw was looking really good for this team last year, and then he got a concussion and was out for the rest of the year. And that really kind of hurt what they were trying to do. If Ahmad Bradshaw can stay healthy, and if Frank Gore can just run – Frank Gore doesn't have to do anything special.
In this offense, all he's got to do is be 85% of the Frank Gore we saw in San Francisco, and he's going to be a hell of an addition to this offense.
Yes.
Because San Francisco didn't have the weapons that the Colts have, and they don't have Andrew Luck. I mean, there's no comparison. God, I'm going to say it again, too. Really, people, do you still think you should have taken Kaepernick or RG3 over Andrew Luck? We really going to go down that road again? Because that's what they were saying back then. I like this Colts team an awful lot. I think that the running game was something they had to fix, and I think they've addressed it very well. They've made some nice additions on defense. They've got one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, a great receiving core, and you've got the two marquee teams in the AFC, the Broncos and the Patriots. Are both of their superstar quarterbacks are a year older. Peyton Manning is really starting to fall off, unfortunately.
Yep.
I think the Colts can rise up this year and maybe punch their ticket all the way to Santa Clara.
I'd enjoy it.
Can they do it? Yes. Will they do it? Well, that remains to be seen.
I think the important thing, too, is the Colts have an opportunity here. They're going to win the division. I don't think that's any question. They get New England at home. They get Denver at home. And the one tough road game, really, is at Pittsburgh.
Here's what you got to look at with the Colts with regard to getting a bye this year. Denver's not going to be as good.
Yes.
So they're probably not going to reel off 12 wins this year. They're probably looking at more like at 10-6. Still enough to win the AFC West, but not enough to put them into a position for a bye. The AFC North, you're going to have three pretty good teams beating up on each other. The Browns will sneak in there and beat one of those teams at some point along the way. So you're probably not looking at more than maybe, you could easily see a 10-win, 11 at most team come out of the AFC North. So really you're battling, all you've got to do is beat out the North and the West, and I think that's easily done. You're probably not going to catch the Patriots for the number one seed, then again, maybe you do. The way that things play out for the Colts this year, they've got the best shot at getting a bye that they've had in a long time.
Do you think that it matters whether they would play, if they do end up playing New England again, if they played in New England or in Indianapolis?
I think it absolutely matters. Look at the Patriots. Have they won an AFC title on the road? When was the last time they did that? Probably Pittsburgh in 2002, I guess. I don't remember.
I'm always cautiously optimistic when it comes to the Colts. We're far enough along now into Andrew Luck's maturation, into Chuck Pagano's tenure as head coach, to say this is a team that has the ability, but needs to show that it can win those big games. And if they do win those games, if they show that ability, I see no reason why they're not a contender for the AFC title and could very well be playing in Super Bowl 50. They have the shot. They have the opportunity. They just need to go and take it.
They've made, I think, the right moves to put them into the conversation for sure this year. The rest of that division, I mean, other than Houston, is garbage.
Well, let's move on to the other teams in this division. We'll start with Houston. The defense, Jadeveon Clowney is going to be playing this year. He's healthy.
He'll be back for a full year, yeah.
They got Vince Wilfork. The defense is going to be the difference maker. On the other side of the ball, Arian Foster's injured. You got DeAndre Hopkins, who's a very good receiver, but your quarterback is Brian Hoyer now. Now,
Right.
Brian Hoyer was very serviceable for Cleveland. Can he be serviceable enough to piggyback off the defensive effort that they're going to get game in and game out and crack their way into the playoff picture?
No, he's just too inconsistent. The defense will keep them in games, but really, I mean, you want to talk about a team with quarterback problems. When he's okay, he can win you some football games, but they're probably staring 9-7 right in the face again. The defense is going to be spectacular. How much better is Watt going to be when you've got to worry about Jadeveon Clowney out there, too?
And Vince Wilfork taking up two guys in the middle.
Right. That's going to keep them in games, but where are they getting the points? That's the question.
How does Ryan Mallett feel? Like, he got traded there. He was going to be given the keys to the car, and then Brian Hoyer comes in and takes the job away from him. You thought that he learned things under Tom Brady, and he would take the mantle someplace else.
Well, there were a lot of people that liked him coming out of Arkansas. He's a sleeper quarterback pick, and then with the Patriots, he's under Tom Brady for a couple seasons. He's going to really be something.
Just never played.
But I also think too, he's also had a history of and a reputation as being a bit of a problem with his attitude and stuff. So maybe that's the issue here. I got to think Ryan Mallett's got at least as much talent as Brian Hoyer, right?
Yeah.
But,
considering I hadn't heard of Brian Hoyer until last season. But yeah.
But and then we've got the Titans and the Jaguars.
Yeah, the Jaguars are not better by any stretch. I mean, we've liked the strides of their defense in the past few years. We said we liked what Gus Bradley was doing as the head coach there, but what have the Jaguars done? Their offense is not better at all. Blake Bortles is the quarterback now.
I think he's a solid choice. I think he's got potential.
Yeah, but they lost Justin Blackmon. He got suspended again. He hasn't played a meaningful down of football, I think, in his entire career. Defensively, they still gave up the second most points in the division last year.
They got Julius Thomas. Again, though, who's going to throw him the ball? You better hope he can block real well.
Yeah. So Jacksonville 3-13, probably the same. Probably the same as they were last year.
Probably be a little more competitive this year. I still like the direction they're headed, but they're still a year or two away from getting into any kind of real conversation.
Rounding up the rear is your irrational confidence Tennessee Titans.
I have no irrational confidence this year.
Did you see anything from Marcus Mariota in the preseason that really told you that he's going to be a good NFL quarterback, or did you see anything from him in the preseason?
I didn't see anything that would make me have any irrational confidence in the Titans this year. I can tell you that. Mm-hmm. He's a good pick, but he's got to learn how to play the NFL style of offense. Did he ever take a snap under center at Oregon? Ever?
Maybe like 3.
Yeah. He's got to learn how to do that, but he's a smart kid. He knows what he's doing, and the Titans, it's a good move, but then you look at the rest of that roster and you go, okay, now what?
I mean, they're starting running back as Bishop Sankey.
Okay.
Right. None of these receivers are jumping off the page at me as guys that I know. Defensively, they haven't been very good for a little bit.
They're going to be a bad team. They're in a rough spot right now. It's going to be a while.
I like some of the pieces they have.
Sure.
It's one of those things, like even with Jacksonville, it's like, yeah, you're collecting all these pieces, but when are you gonna do something with it?
Yeah, they're both 2 or 3 years away, easy.
Yeah, they're both 3-13, 2-14 type teams.
I mean, maybe one of them breaks out and goes maybe 6-10, but that's the best you could hope for. I would not dare predict that.
No.
So yeah, that's just it. So it's basically the Colts and then the Texans hoping that somebody can win a game for them besides their defense, and then you got the rest.
Colts are your division champions.
Absolutely.
By a long shot.
Unless something really disastrous happens, yeah.
Houston, I think 9-7, like they were last year, is probably right about where they'd be, 9-7, 8-8. That defense is just good enough to win them at least 8 games, you would think.
Right.
And then, if Brian Hoyer can make something of himself again, then maybe you slide them into a wild card spot. But
wild card competition is going to be pretty tough.
It's going to be just like last year, where we have 4 teams at 9-7, 8-8. It's all going to be right around the same margin of error. But that's the AFC South. Let's move on to the AFC West. Your division champion, Denver Broncos, 12-4, earned a bye. Tied for second were the Kansas City Chiefs and San Diego Chargers, both 9-7. The Chargers, interestingly enough, had a point differential last year of 0. Scored 348 points, led up 348 points. Closing out the division is the Oakland Raiders at 3-13. Now, let's start at the top with Denver. They're still going to be very good. Peyton Manning is obviously going to make the team as good as it can be. They still got the wide receiver core. They still have a very good, talented defense. Gary Kubiak is the head coach there now as John Fox is fired. Was he fired or did he resign?
I don't know, actually.
Do you remember?
No, I don't.
I've seen plenty of Gary Kubiak head coach teams when he was with Houston, and I kind of know what to expect from that. This team's going to go as far as Peyton Manning's legs allow, as far as Peyton Manning's neck allows, as far as his arm goes. This has to be his last go around, right?
I think so.
This has to be the last kick of the can.
My biggest concern with him, and I will make a prediction here, I don't think he's going to play all 16 games this season. I just think it's going to be very hard for him to stay healthy throughout the course of an entire season. That's the huge thing for the Broncos this year. If he stays healthy, sure, they're going to be right in the thick of it. I don't think 12-4 is realistic this year, but they're still going to be good enough to win that division. But my concern is that we just saw him start to break down last year. He didn't get any healthier in the offseason. What we found out is he hasn't been able to feel the tips of his fingers for the last 4 years.
Right.
That's their biggest problem. I mean, if he stays healthy, sure, they're going to be there. They're going to be a playoff team. But if he goes down, all of a sudden your playoff fate is in the hands of Brock Osweiler. I'm not sure I'm crazy about that. C.J. Anderson, good running back. The defense is real tough, but it's all on Peyton Manning. If he stays healthy, yeah. If not, it could be a weird season in that division.
If Peyton gets injured, then it's anybody's division. If he stays healthy, 10 or 11 wins, just based on pure talent and football smarts. Anything less than that, and you're getting right into the thick of the Chiefs moving up or the Chargers moving up. Now to have your entire season rest on, is our 41-year-old quarterback going to be able to stay glued together long enough for us to have a good season?
That's what it comes down to for the Broncos, really. Good defense, good running back, good receiving core, but he's the key to all of it.
Right up behind them is the Kansas City Chiefs. 9-7 last year, not bad. Again, right on the cusp of making the playoffs again. What do you see from Kansas City? Kind of more of the same? Or
probably more of the same. It's
they lose Dwayne Bowe on offense, but he hasn't been.
I don't know if that really matters. They did not score a single touchdown with the receiver last year on a pass.
Yeah, that's right.
And still managed to go 9-7, but they didn't. I mean, they brought in Jeremy Maclin, but is that really enough? I think it's going to be more of the same. And again, just like the Broncos, the Chiefs' fate kind of rides on Peyton Manning. I like the team a lot. I love the defense. Jamal Charles, he's another one. If you can keep him upright, he's a force. They've got, what's the kid's name that backs him up?
Niles Davis.
Yeah, I think he's a really good running back too, but I just don't think they've got enough on offense. I mean, Alex Smith, a good game manager, but you need some receivers and you need more of a passing game, and 9-7, I think, is a pretty realistic goal for them.
Eric Berry comes back for this Kansas City Chiefs defense.
Yes.
Eric Berry on his own is a very good safety. He's an impact player on defense. They're always going to have the home field advantage. They were 6-2 at home last year. The Arrowhead is always loud. They had the big win against the Patriots on Monday night last year. So it'll be interesting to see how the Chiefs fare this season.
They're going to be about what they always are. They're going to be solid, but again, it depends on the Broncos, and I just don't know that I have enough faith in. I mean, who knows? Maybe one of the receivers rises up and becomes a legitimate threat, but right now, I just don't think they've got enough.
Next up on the list is the San Diego Superchargers. 9-7 last year. Again, just the game out of the playoffs. Still kind of the same key cast of characters there. You got Phillip Rivers. You have guys like Keenan Allen at wide receiver. Antonio Gates at tight end. Defensively, they're okay.
They're an enigma. I've never understood this team, ever.
Yeah. No, that's completely true. When the Chargers were at their height, yeah, you kind of understood it. You had Phillip Rivers. You had LaDainian Tomlinson running around. Antonio Gates was a force. Mm-hmm. They had some decent wide receivers. You had guys like Sean Merriman on defense. they were good. But ever since that all kind of fell away, and it's been completely the Phillip Rivers show, I've never fully kind of understood this team. Like, they made the playoffs 2 years ago, and I don't even know how they did that.
I can tell you how
they had like a scenario in the last day of the season where like two teams had to lose and they had to win and they almost didn't and then they did.
Right.
And it was just like, how'd they even get there? And then they beat Cincinnati and are competitive with Denver in that playoff game. It's just, this team is strange. It's always been strange over the last 4 or 5 years or so.
This is a team that, going back a few years, I think went 14-2 with Marty Schottenheimer and lost in the first round of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see them do well. But I don't know what to make of them. I mean, my God, they could go 10-6, they could go 5-11, and I'm not sure I'd bet on either one.
Do you think any of the Los Angeles stuff hangs over them?
Maybe a little bit. It depends on how serious it gets. I mean, right now it doesn't seem like it's a foregone conclusion like it was, say, with Cleveland in '95 or, the Oilers and the other teams that moved back then, or the Rams for that matter. But yeah, if it starts to get more and more serious, it certainly does. I mean, I saw a Browns team that started out '95 looking pretty good, and when the Baltimore rumors started, they fell right apart. And it wasn't like the talent changed, so it had to be that, I would think, but it could be a factor, yeah.
The running back for the Chargers this season, I misspoke. The running back is going to be Melvin Gordon. I think if there's anybody on the Chargers offense that could be a sort of X factor to make them better, it will be Melvin Gordon. But again, these are the Chargers, and we know this team has its ups and downs.
They're going to be interesting. I mean, they're going to probably be in the wild card hunt, too. If you take the two teams, the Chiefs and the Chargers, and both of them are firing on all cylinders, I like the Chargers better, just because they've got a better quarterback.
Last year, their offensive ranks were terrible. They were 23rd in points scored, 24th in yards gained, 24th in passing, 22nd in rushing. But on defense, they were 5th in points allowed, 10th in yards allowed, 8th in passing yards allowed, and 20th in rushing yards allowed. They could rise up and beat you on any day, but again, they could also lose to anybody on any given day.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see what they do.
It depends on how many times they win on any given day. It's really what it boils down to.
Yeah, probably. In closing out the AFC West and the AFC is the Oakland Raiders. 3-13 last year were the Raiders. I don't know if this is just kind of blind optimism, or maybe I think Derek Carr was better for them at quarterback last year. I like getting guys like Amari Cooper to throw to. I like Khalil Mack on defense for them. I think the Raiders have some pieces. Maybe they could turn this thing around. Maybe they win, 5 or 6 games this year. Obviously, that's not a huge improvement from 3-13, but maybe 6. Maybe if they're lucky, they get to 7 games and throw some wrenches into people's plans. The Raiders aren't nearly as bad as they have been, though, and I think that's a positive sign for them at the very least.
They're on the right path, finally. They're probably going to be in the 5-11 to, maybe if everything goes their way, they might win 7 games, maybe 8, but still probably a year or two away, but they are going to be improved this year, and I don't think if you're anybody on their schedule, you want to look past them and think it's an easy win, because I think they're going to be a lot more competitive and a lot tougher to beat than people think.
This is also a team, if you remember, 3 years ago? They won all 6 of their division games.
Yeah.
But then lost like every other game outside of that, and were finished like 6-12.
Yeah, welcome to the AFC West.
Yeah, it could be a little weird at this division. It
really can be, yeah.
So overall, with the entirety of the AFC, our division winners, I think we agreed on pretty much every division winner: Patriots, Steelers, Colts, Broncos.
If Peyton Manning stays healthy, you got to go with the Broncos, and I don't want to predict that he's not going to be healthy, so I'm going to say the Broncos, yeah.
Wild card teams, I have the Ravens, and I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
Because why not? Why not Buffalo? Circle the wagons.
I'm with you on the Ravens, and my wild card team, I'm going to make my one dumb prediction that I make every year in the NFL preview show. You ready? The San Diego Chargers.
That was the other place I was looking, to be honest. Just because you don't know what you're going to get.
Right. So the San Diego Chargers.
But I think it's safe to say the Ravens will be up there. And then it will be a pick from Buffalo, Miami, Cincinnati, Houston, Kansas City, San Diego. One of those 6 teams is going to be the second wild card team. Otherwise, the AFC is pretty straightforward, barring any substantial injury.
You could make an argument for the Bengals as a wild card team, but I just don't think they do it again. I just don't see it. So I'm going to go with the Ravens and the Chargers.
What about in the playoffs? Who do you have winning the American Football Conference?
The smart money would say to pick the Patriots again, but you know what? I have seen this Indianapolis Colts team with far less talent beat teams that were better than they are when they played the game at the level they're capable of playing it at. I think they've got the talent now to do that a lot more often. I'm picking your Indianapolis Colts to win the AFC.
I'm with you. The right mind says Patriots. However, I am an unabashed homer, and if I think this team is good, damn it, this team's going to be good. Indianapolis Colts, your preseason AFC champion for me, in my unabashed Colt blue blood. And I'll enjoy the Colts while I can before I get a team here to root for.
If it's not the Colts, the team I like other than them, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I think when it comes to Super Bowl contenders in the AFC, I think it really is just Patriots, Steelers, Colts.
Yeah.
And if Peyton Manning can be Peyton Manning for the Broncos, that's always the possibility. Move over to the original NFL, the National Football Conference, and we'll go with everyone's favorite division in football, the NFC East. Last season, the Dallas Cowboys were the Dallas Cowboys were the division champions last year. Holy
yeah.
12-4. Tony Romo was good.
DeMarco Murray had a great season.
DeMarco Murray was amazing, but they lose him to the Philadelphia Eagles.
Right.
Joseph Randle is in as their starting running back, along with Darren McFadden. But it really, as good as DeMarco Murray was, the Cowboys were really paced by amazing offensive line play. The defense was pretty good.
The defense, I think, made a huge difference last year because no one thought that defense was going to be any good at all.
Yeah.
And it wasn't great by any definition, but it was good enough.
They were number one in the league in turnovers forced per drive last season. Big improvement there from the Cowboys defense. And, you look at them going all the way through the playoffs, and they're one terrible rule interpretation away from going to the Super Bowl.
Maybe. People seem to forget that the Packers still would have had the ball about a minute 50 left in that game and 2 timeouts with Aaron Rodgers. So I'm not ready to give that game to the Cowboys just yet.
That's still a lot more than we ever expected from the Cowboys.
No doubt about it, yeah.
12-4 last year. Can they get to that point again this year? Are the Cowboys as good or better than they possibly were last year?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't like losing Murray, but it came down to a decision you had to make. You either had to keep DeMarco Murray, then Dez Bryant becomes a situation. So of the two, I think they made the smart move in keeping the receiver because, as we've seen in the new NFL, running backs are kind of plug and play. You don't necessarily have to have a great one to be a great team. So I don't like that they lost Murray, but they kept Dez Bryant. So I think they're going to be solid again this year. I think they're better than the Eagles. I'll say that. They're going to be as good. Yeah, I think so. I do. Because, and this is going to sound crazy. I can't believe these words are about to come out of my mouth. But who would you rather have at quarterback, Tony Romo or Sam Bradford?
Yeah. No, it's just funny because everyone, for years, we've always crapped on Tony Romo.
Right.
But then if you take you step back for a second, it's like, well, he's not a bad quarterback.
No.
He always put up the numbers, and the team was competitive. From what I saw from him last year, as long as the running game can be serviceable, maybe not DeMarco Murray numbers, but serviceable, that obviously makes things better for Tony Romo. If the offensive line can play as well as they did and keep him upright and not have him get injured, then he's pretty good.
Here's the way to look at it with Tony Romo. Let's say you're the New York Jets, or the Buffalo Bills, even better example. Put Tony Romo on the Bills, and how much difference does that make? We love to bash the guy, but short of Manning, Brady, Rodgers, and Luck, who would you rather have? Really? I'm not even going to say that I'd rather have Drew Brees at this point.
They've had similar numbers the last 2 years, too.
Yeah. We love
and really, they've had similar numbers for the last few years, but Drew Brees is the one that's been getting the wins, which is, obviously the big difference. But in terms of pure quarterback play, it's negligible.
Right.
The difference.
So, like you said, we love to make fun of them and talk about the interception that's going to end their season and all that. But when you break it down, pick me 10 quarterbacks you'd rather have. You're not going to come up with them.
Do you think last year redeemed Tony Romo in the eyes of NFL fans?
I think it did to an extent, yeah. He's probably going to have to go all the way and at least get to a Super Bowl to finally shed all of the nonsense. But, boy, he took a big step towards it last year.
He wasn't the reason they lost last year.
No.
He just simply wasn't.
No.
And again, if Des Bryant, if the referees can correctly call that a catch, they had the shot. They were there. So I guess the question is, are they a Super Bowl caliber team?
I think so, because you look at the NFC this year. The Seahawks, they've made some nice additions and all that, but I could be crazy, but I think that loss last year is going to affect that team a lot more than people think it's going to. After that, you've got the Eagles, who are going to be good, the Packers, and then there's a pretty significant drop-off after that. We talked about this last year, that everybody likes to envision the NFC as being this like super tough conference, but really, it's a pretty big drop-off after the first 4 or 5 teams.
Definitely. I think they have the more elite teams of the conferences, but when you get past those elite teams, it does take a dip. And I think even some of those second-tier teams have gone down this year when you look at teams like Detroit. But staying in the East, it's amazing what one season can do, and maybe people are going to overreact to that one season. And everybody, we know that the media loves to jump on the Dallas Cowboys. They're going to make the playoffs, whether it's as a wild card or as the division winner. But the other team that's going to be challenging them for that division title is the Philadelphia Eagles. Last year they were 10-6. Obviously a lot of change in this offseason. They add DeMarco Murray. They trade away Nick Foles. They get Sam Bradford. They lose LaShawn McCoy to Buffalo. I said it on a previous show. Win, lose, or draw, the Eagles are going to be the most interesting story in the NFL this season. You're always going to be watching them regardless of... And they had 4 quarterbacks going into the camp. They had Bradford, Mark Sanchez, Tim Tebow, and Matt Barkley. So just before cuts, they trade Matt Barkley to Arizona. And so everyone says, oh, well, they traded Matt Barkley. Tim Tebow's the third-string quarterback in Philadelphia. Oh, wait, what? Tim Tebow was cut. So they have 2 quarterbacks. That's the difference, I think, between the Eagles and the Cowboys, is the quarterback. And again, looking at the 2 teams, who would you rather have, Romo or the other 2 guys? I'm still interested to see how Sam Bradford will do orchestrating that offense, because he doesn't necessarily need to be an incredible quarterback and start lasering balls down the field to work this offense. Because you just look at their running backs are DeMarco Murray, Ryan Matthews, and Darren Sproles. That's a lot of options. Well, and not only that, but Sam Bradford, love him, hate him, or whatever, hasn't had this kind of offensive weaponry to work with ever. No. Or this offensive mind coaching him. He might be as good as that number 1 pick or whatever, how high he went when he got drafted. Maybe he turns out to be that good, but he's another guy that you got to wonder, can he make it through an entire season without getting hurt? And I think the defense is better for Philadelphia, too. The issue with the Eagles' defense, of course, is despite how electric the offense can be, is they're not on the field long enough. Right. So the defense is going to be out there a lot. I think the Eagles, they have probably the highest variance in terms of what they could ultimately end up being this season. I agree. If things go wrong, this team's easily 6-12, right? Oh, yeah. But if everything goes right, there's no reason why they couldn't be 13-3 either. Exactly. There's a lot of room in between there, and they could easily go in either direction. I think as long as Sam Bradford stays healthy, I think they're a wild card team, but like I said, there's just too much variance there for me to put them over the top. They have the potential. I'm with you. I think they're definitely a wild card team. I don't know that they've got enough to challenge for the division. I think it comes down to the quarterbacks, and I'm going to go with Romo over Bradford and Sanchez. Next up on the list was your New York Football Giants. They were 6-10 last year. This is another interesting team for me because Eli Manning had a bounce-back year last year after a really bad one. He still made some mistakes, but he was pretty all right. But you also saw last year with Victor Cruz going down, you saw the emergence of Odell Beckham Jr. 6-10 last year. Do the Giants make improvements, or are they kind of stuck in the middle? I think they're kind of stuck in the middle. They might improve a little bit, but I don't think they're back at a level where they could make a Super Bowl run at this point. They're headed down the other side of the hill. They might slow down for a little bit, enough to maybe win 7, maybe 8 games this year, but they're definitely headed in a direction where it's going to come to a point where they're going to have to kind of do the rebuild thing, and I think they're headed in that direction. I think the offense will be much improved, and obviously in the NFL, if you can score points, it'll get you far. Eli has to cut down on the interceptions. You got a lot of offensive talent. The Giants might be able to score some points, but are they going to be able to keep the other teams out of the end zone? Debatable. The Giants are kind of stuck where they are, I think. Rounding out last place in the division is the Washingtons. 4-12 last year, and this offseason for Washington has been I don't even know what to say. I mean, RG3 continues to be mishandled.
Oh, my God.
To the umpteenth degree.
Yep.
I feel so bad for that guy. He basically had his football career destroyed by this team, by this management, by Dan Snyder in particular. What the hell is going on with that football team?
I'm honestly a little surprised that RG3 didn't get cut on cut down day. I am.
Well, I think there's contractual language that doesn't allow him to do that, or they have to pay him a certain amount. I think they're trying to ride it out to a point where they can get rid of him and make it financially sound. If they cut him, they still owe him a crap ton of money. I don't know. This has been such a freaking dumpster fire. If you could see my page of notes right now, I have a lot of notes on the Cowboys. I have some notes on the Giants, a lot of notes on the Eagles. And then under Washington, I just put a giant X. And in all capital letters, I wrote, "Oh my goodness."
Yeah.
Because I literally, I was going to go look up stuff, and I'm like, I don't need to know anything about this team because I've heard all about it. And no matter what they actually have on the field, it doesn't matter whether it's the name issues, whether it's Dan Snyder himself, whether it's the RG3 stuff. There is just so much wrong with this franchise at this point in time.
Take everything I said about the Cleveland Browns, multiply it by 5, and you're getting close to how bad the Redskins are. It's just a disaster. There's no other way to put it.
It's an unmitigated disaster there in Washington, and that's too bad because it wasn't all that long ago that they were actually pretty decent, and I'm not even talking about the one RG3 year.
They've got 3 Super Bowl trophies. I mean, this is a team that's been they've been historically pretty good, and now they're just a joke. And it starts with the ownership, the name, everything's just a problem, and I don't see any solution.
Indeed, indeed. So rounding out the NFC East, I think we both have the Cowboys on top.
Yep.
And we both have the Philadelphia Eagles as a wild card.
Yep.
All right. Move on to the NFC Norris. And we'll start with the division champs. Full disclosure, basically a podcast network has a stake in the Packers franchise.
Absolutely, we do.
They finished up 12-4, the Green Bay Packers. The second place was the Detroit Lions at 11-5. The Vikings rounded out in third at 7-9, and the Chicago Bears finished up at 5-11 there in last place. So, start at the top with literally your Green Bay Packers. 12-4. Made the NFC title game, league MVP Aaron Rodgers, everything's swell, except for Jordy Nelson's out for the year, your top wide receiver.
That's tough.
How do you feel about the Packers going into 2015?
Losing Jordy Nelson hurts a lot. I think the nice thing, though, is you've got Randall, don't call me Reggie, Cobb.
Yes.
He's going to step up. There's a couple of younger receivers I think that might be able to step in. And, you've got a quarterback in Aaron Rodgers that, he lost his top receiver. But he's also pretty good at spreading the ball around. So it's going to hurt the Packers some, but I don't think it's going to be enough to hurt them to the point where they're not going to win the division. They're still going to be very, very good.
Yes.
And, you've got a great running back in Eddie Lacy. The defense, again, is the question mark here. I still think that they're a good defense, but, man, it's just, you get into when you got to play the Seattles and stuff, and it worries me a little bit. But they're going to be fine. They'll still win the division, I think.
Offensively, they're going to be just amazing. The Lions got worse. The Bears got worse. The Vikings got a little bit better, but not good enough to challenge for the division. This is the Packers' division to lose far and away. When it comes to making that next level, I guess it is about the defense. You look at that NFC title game and how it kind of got away from them in the second half.
Well, that's putting it mildly, but yeah.
Yeah.
I prefer to call it what it is, which was the most colossal choke I've ever seen.
Yeah, well, there's also that way to put it. Does that loss stick with the Packers at all?
I think so, a little bit, yeah. I don't know that it hurts them to the point where they can't win the division, but, getting in the playoffs, it might even be in the regular season, you get a lead, and I don't care who you are, you're going to think back to that. And how they just completely collapsed in that game against Seattle. So, yeah, it's going to have an effect, I think. For sure.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, still 12-4 like last year, probably right around there. Maybe 11. They're far and away the best team in this division. Second place, though, really a team that I think is probably going to take one of the biggest drops in terms of quality in this whole conference is the Detroit Lions. They were 11-5 last year, but, you lose Ndamukong Suh. You lose Nick Fairley at running back. Reggie Bush is out. Amir Abdullah comes in. Matthew Stafford is a good quarterback. Megatron, Calvin Johnson is an elite receiver. Defense is going to be a little bit worse.
I think you're right with Detroit. I don't think they're going to fall way off, down to, 5-11 territory. But it's going to be real tough for them. I think they're probably looking at an 8-8 season, 9-7 if things go really well. I think they fall off a bit. I think that they're not going to be quite as good as last year, and not horrible bad, but 8-8. If things go their way and a lot of things break their way, they could maybe still contend for a wild card. But I don't think it's a sure thing it was last year.
I think they're going to be at the bottom end of the wild card discussion, if at best. I like Matthew Stafford and I like Megatron a lot, but them alone can't bring this team to where it once was. Third place, though, was your Minnesota Vikings, 7-9 last year. I think that just by another year of some of their younger players improving, learning the system, being comfortable in the NFL, I think the Vikings make a nice little jump here. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs or anything like that, but Teddy Bridgewater has definitely been improving. They hope that nothing more comes for Adrian Peterson. Their defense is going to be slightly improved, I think. I like the direction that the Vikings are trending right now.
Welcome to Greg's Irrational Confidence team for 2015, the Minnesota Vikings. I like this team a lot going into this season. They are going to be a wild card contender. I thought that Teddy Bridgewater was a great move. He's got a lot of potential as a quarterback. Now he's got
Teddy Bridgewater is your new Jake Locker.
Right, exactly.
Teddy Bridgewater is your new Jake Locker. You were all over him.
I'm all over him, and he's my new irrational confidence guy. The Vikings are my new irrational confidence team. They picked up Mike Wallace from Miami, who was hardly an elite receiver, but good enough. The defense is going to be a lot better, and you've got Adrian Peterson, which just adds a whole new dimension to their offense.
Kyle Rudolph is a very good tight end.
Yeah, I think that they're going to be in contention for a wild card spot. I like this team a lot this year. Yeah.
Really?
Yep, I sure do. But like I said, it's my irrational confidence team, so you take that with a grain of salt, of course.
I wouldn't put a rational confidence slap on them for me, but they were 7-9 last year. 9-7.
That might be enough for a playoff spot in the NFC.
It's a possibility. I'll
let me ask you this. Who do you think is better, Minnesota or Detroit?
Minnesota.
Well, there you go. And look at the rest of this conference. That's why. I mean, it's not like I think they're all of a sudden Super Bowl contenders. I just think they're good enough to make a run at a wild card spot in this conference this year.
I think as a whole, Minnesota's better, but I still like Detroit's offense maybe a little bit better.
And then we've got the poor Chicago Bears.
Oh, I almost wanted to ask Andy what his opinion was, but I dragged down that sad hole. So my one question for you about the Bears, Greg.
Okay.
Will the Bears be bad or horrible?
They'll be bad. They're not going to be horrible, but they'll be bad.
Think so?
Yeah, they've still got enough to avoid being just abysmally terrible.
Yeah, they still got Matt Forte at running back. Alshon Jeffrey is your star wide receiver. Jake Cutler, if he gives a damn.
Right.
John Fox comes in as the head coach of this team. And defense, they have some guys. Jared Allen is still on that defense. 5-11 last year. Maybe you go 6-10?
Yeah, 6-10, 7-9 if things break their way, but they're not going to be historically bad or anything, but they're not going to be good either.
Right around where they were last year, maybe 6. So to wrap up the NFC North, Packers first place far and away, we think.
Yep.
Second place, I think we both have the Minnesota Vikings in second place.
Yes, we do.
Detroit Lions in third and the Bears in fourth.
Bringing up the rear.
You think Minnesota's in wildcard contention?
I do.
I don't think they get it, but they'll be flirting around it. They'll get your irrational confidence flickering a little bit. That'll have to tame down late in the season.
One of these years, my irrational confidence is going to pay off, and I think this is the year.
We'll see. Our favorite division in football, the NFC South. God, what a competitive division it was last year, Greg. You had the Carolina Panthers win the division at 7-8-1, but they were in a tight playoff race with the Saints, who finished at 7-9. The Falcons were 6-10. The Buccaneers were in the hunt. They were in the hunt graphic until like week 13.
Yes. Even
though they were 2-14. They were all right there, but the Carolina Panthers with a sterling 7-8-1 record, .469 win percentage for those doing the math at home. Every single team in this division had a negative point differential. Oh, Jesus Christ, this division's dumb.
Not one of the finer moments in NFL history.
My question, will there be a team that is over 500? I didn't say over 500 in this division.
I'm going to say yes. 9-7 is going to be the best record in that division. I don't know who's going to have it. All I know is who's not going to have it, and it's not going to be the Buccaneers. But other than that, yeah.
We'll start with the Panthers. They were 7-8-1. The defense took a little step down, but it's still solid, I guess. Cam Newton keeps chugging along. He's had a decent NFL career. Their running game is it's a lot of pieces with guys like Jonathan Stewart still kicking around. They have a very good receiver in Kelvin Benjamin too. But as far as the rest of it goes, they're kind of right exactly where they were last year, right?
I think so.
7, 8, 1, 8 and 8, I guess at the most.
Thereabouts, yeah. Not a lot to get excited about with this team. I think with Cam Newton, I know that people like to say he's an elite quarterback. He makes some exciting plays, and he's better than a lot of guys in the league. But I don't know that I would sit back and start printing up my Super Bowl tickets with Cam Newton just yet. Now that's not to say that they can't put talent around him at some point, but right now, no.
Second place was the New Orleans Saints at 7-9. A very disappointing team in recent seasons. With the offensive weapons they have and a quarterback like Drew Brees, there's no reason this team should be 7-9. The defense was still bad as it was a couple years ago. Are the Saints they're going to be the team that makes it over 500 to you?
They might. I don't know. I think the Saints are like a lot like the Lions. I think they're headed down the other side of the hill at this point. You know, they lost Jimmy Graham to Seattle. Yeah. I think Marcus Colston's still there, but he's another year older. Breeze is another year older. I just think the Saints they're headed down the other side of the hill. I don't think that. I mean, could they? You know, sure they could go 9-7. The benefit that all of these teams have is they play each other 6 times.
It's true.
So that's always something that, you know, if you can get 5 of those, you can pick up 5 of your wins in your division, which makes it easy. Then you only got to pick up 4 more throughout the other 10 games.
Yes and no. Third place at 6-10 overall. The Falcons went 5-1 in the division.
Okay, so maybe not.
they got their 5 divisional wins, like you said,
but they didn't get the other ones. You see, that's the problem.
They went 1-9 outside the division. And since you already said that you don't like the Bucs, I assume that means that you're on the Atlanta Falcons this year?
I think the Atlanta Falcons are going to be much improved because they finally got rid of that idiot coach that they've had for all those years.
Very true.
I think Matt Ryan's a good player. You've got one of the top wide receivers in football. Roddy White. I think the defense will be a little bit better, and you won't have the decision-making process that cost them how many times over the years. Yep. That won't be there anymore. Now, that's not to say that they'll be any better at it, but you got to think that they can't be any worse at it. I like the Falcons. I think that they've got a shot at winning the division.
Matt Ryan is supposedly a good NFL quarterback. He shows it sometimes, and he doesn't show it some other times. For a guy named Matty Ice, he tends to melt in some big game situations. You could just throw your hands up in the air about this whole division. You don't know.
You know, the only thing you know for certain is that Tampa's not going to win it.
Even if Jameis Winston makes them a little bit better, it's not going to be better enough to win the division.
Well, here's a question while we're talking about the Buccaneers. Did you see anything out of Jameis Winston this preseason that makes you think that he's going to make them any better?
From what I heard of him early on in practice, he was throwing a lot of interceptions, and that made me immediately down on the whole idea. And then I watched the game with them against Cincinnati, and I saw a little bit more, but they're still a little ways off. Jameis Winston has some offensive weapons to throw to. He has Vincent Jackson. He has Mike Evans. Doug Martin out of the backfield is a good running back. There's something brewing there for sure. But again, as we've said about every team in this division, every team's beatable.
I'm not ready to put Tampa Bay in the hunt for this division.
No, as far as preseason conversations go, of course not.
Right.
Could they? Could something weird happen? Of course it could.
No.
I'm not putting anything out of reach in this division. None of those teams have demonstrably improved from last year to this one in terms of just offseason moves. We assume that some teams will play to their potential or regress to their better mean. Nobody could be as bad as they all were last year. But at the same point, maybe they could, right?
Looking at the division, the biggest difference is the coaching change in Atlanta, and I think that's going to be significant.
Yeah.
Because what was his name, Mike Smith?
Yes.
Mike, I don't remember, but
Mike Smith, yeah.
Mike Smith made just some of the most boneheaded decisions I've ever seen in professional football. And that's not going to be there. I mean, I don't know how many games he cost them in his tenure there, but just that alone, I think, should be enough to make the difference for these guys in that division. Not to say they're going to be a serious contender for anything, but I think that's what sets them apart at this point. All things being equal.
So to round out the division, somebody has to win it. You think it's Atlanta.
I think it's Atlanta.
I'll give it to Carolina again. I'm not confident in that. But as of right this second, I mean, Carolina had to come around the back end and kind of win it last year too. God, I don't know, man. I'll give it to Carolina.
Okay.
Well, hold on. Hold on. Let me see their schedule, because the other problem is Carolina now has to play a first place schedule.
Well, pick one here. We're
Falcons, Saints, Bucks. Bucks, Saints, Falcons, Panthers. Jesus. I'll get Saints.
All right. There you have it.
Drew Brees. Saints.
Okay. I take the Falcons.
To round out the NFC, let's head over to the best coast, the West Coast, the NFC West, where you had your NFC champion Seattle Seahawks 1 yard away from winning the Super Bowl against the New England Patriots.
Speaking of boneheaded coaching decisions,
Seattle went 12-4. The second place was the Arizona Cardinals, who they looked really good. The defense was great. Carson Palmer was leading this team. They were going to be a surprise winner of the NFC West. And then Carson Palmer went down, and then they ended up 11-5. San Francisco, the 49ers were 8-8. They lose Jim Harbaugh. And rounding out the division is the Los Angeles St. Louis Rams at 6-10. Start off with Seattle. They lose a little bit because the money is starting to crunch in on them, as we've all kind of expected it was going to eventually happen. They still have many of the key players on defense, though. Russell Wilson, Marshawn Lynch on offense. They get Jimmy Graham to help in the passing game a little bit. I think Seattle's still going to be right about where they were. This whole division kind of takes on the tenor of what happens with the Arizona quarterback position. Because if Carson Palmer is where he was last year, the Seahawks have some competition. If not, then the Seahawks will have an easier path.
Yeah, they're still the class of that division, I think. So it's theirs to lose, basically.
Second place, the Arizona Cardinals. The defense is still good. Yep. I love that Cardinals defense. Home field advantage for the Cardinals was surprisingly good last year, 7-1. But the question remains on offense. Larry Fitzgerald is 1 year older. They have some nice receivers. The running backs are okay. Andre Ellington is fine.
Pretty good, yeah.
It's all about Matt Barkley. Or not Matt Barkley got traded there. What am I saying? Getting my U.S. quarterbacks mixed up.
But the good thing is, it's all about Carson Palmer. But the good thing is that I think having Matt Barkley there as a backup puts them in a little bit better position if Carson Palmer goes down again, which is, I think, likely at this point.
It's not the same thing as Drew Stanton or Logan Thomas. So as long as Carson Palmer can stay healthy, I mean, he looked good last year at the beginning of the year. He looked really good. I really like the defense, though. The pressure they can get up front is stellar.
It all comes down to Carson Palmer, and if he can stay healthy and they play like they did last year, they're going to be in the wild card hunt, and I think that's going to be a pretty good season for them.
Third place last year was the San Francisco 49ers. They were 8-8.
Yeah.
They lose Jim Harbaugh. Patrick Willis retires early because of concussions. I think the San Francisco 49ers are going to be a very bad football team this year.
I don't know who the number one quarterback coming out in the draft is this year, but the 49ers might want to start scouting him.
I don't know if they're going to be that awfully bad.
Oh, they're going to be that awfully bad.
I think 4-12's in their future. I don't know if they get all the way down to the 2-14 levels, but 4-12 for sure. If you look at all the defenses in this division, the Seahawks defense is good. The Cardinals defense is good. The Rams defense is good. And the 49ers defense has lost a lot of pieces, and their offense, it just isn't good anymore. I mean, Kaepernick is such a freaking wild card. I just don't like the vibe. I just don't like the feel I'm getting of that whole team. It doesn't have the same air that it did when Harbaugh first got there and got that team in order and got them focused.
I think that this team's going to really fall off the cliff hard this year. I mean, do they go 2-14? Probably not, but it's certainly possible.
Yeah,
I think Colin Kaepernick is just he's regressed every year since he went to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't see any reason to think that with this new coaching staff that I'd never heard of is going to make him any better. It was a nice little run they had there, but boy, is it over.
Rounding out the division is the St. Louis, can we please just get the hell out of here, to Los Angeles Rams. 6-10. The defense, very good. Their front seven is great. Offensively, now they get Nick Foles in there at quarterback. That's an interesting fit. Decent running game. They're going to win their fair share of games. 6-10 last year. I can see them getting up to 7 or 8.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
defense is going to be real tough. I mean, the defense was tough last year, and it's just gotten better.
I don't think they're wild card contenders or anything like that, but they're going to be a solidly competitive team. They're going to give some teams a run for their money, for sure.
They're not going to be exciting to watch because it's going to be a lot of defense and just ball control, try to game manage offense, but they're going to be competitive in every game, I think. Now, last year we decided that we were not going to say the nickname of the Washington team.
Yes.
From this point forward, I will only refer to these guys as the Los Angeles Rams.
Yes. Yeah. I just pull the trigger.
As far as I'm concerned, they're the Los Angeles Rams. So who do we like in this? We're going with the Seahawks, right?
Yeah, Seahawks to win the division. and I like the Cardinals to get the wild card berth.
I'm with you on that one. And then the Rams and the 49ers bring it
out. Yep.
Okay.
So, to round out the NFC, we have the Cowboys winning, Packers winning. You have the Falcons. I have the Saints, Panthers, Falcons. And we both have the Seahawks winning the West. Wild cards, I think we both were agreed on the Eagles and Cardinals. So winning the NFC.
As much as I would love to get that shareholder Super Bowl ring, I've got to say that this year I'm picking the Dallas Cowboys to win the NFC.
I'm gonna go with you on that one. I think the Cowboys have finally put it all together. I think they finally figured it out and they know what to do. And I'll take the Cowboys into the Super Bowl, and that means that we have a rematch of Super Bowl V, Greg.
Yes.
Colts-Cowboys. And if you remember, the Colts won that game.
Jim O'Brien, rookie kicker, kicked the field goal. Set a Super Bowl record for turnovers with, I think, 7 between both teams. Was referred to as a comedy of errors in the newspapers the next day.
Oh, my.
But that Super Bowl ring still a Super Bowl ring.
So, who do we got winning the Super Bowl this year, Greg? Colts, Cowboys, Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, Super Bowl 50, gold fireworks and all. Who you got?
I've got the Dallas Cowboys in a confluence of events that could only happen in the NFL and its 50th anniversary of the Super Bowl. America's team winning America's game. Cowboys are your world champions this year.
Because I can't pick against my own team. Indianapolis Colts, Super Bowl 50 champions. We got our Super Bowl Cowboys Colts. I picked the Colts. Greg picks the Cowboys. And starting on Thursday night, we get to do the countdown to find out if we're correct or not.
Yes, New England and Pittsburgh. Who do you like in that one?
I got to go with the Pats on opening night at home. Tom Brady looking to let everyone know that he's still here.
There's one team that can't be intimidated by the Patriots and the home crowd and all that. It's the Steelers. So I'm going to go out on a limb and pick the Steelers in an upset.
It's here, Greg. It's finally here. Week 1.
In the National Football League.
The National Football League.